This is CBC Here and Now.
I have nightmares when I see notifications of diversion, especially as a mother of a 3-year-old. It is unbearable. I cannot think about it.
Hours away from the nearest emergency room, residents and first responders worry more lives will be lost.
Put me in the hole for 2.5 weeks with another guy and didn't let us out once. Not once.
A Newfoundlander in BC says he should be able to join a class action lawsuit about solitary confinement, but legislation is holding him back. Welcome to Here and Now. We begin tonight on the Baie-Verte Peninsula. A fire chief there says the doctor shortage at his local hospital is putting residents at risk. Kyle Payne wrote a letter to health officials looking for answers. Here and Now's Garrett Berry joins us now live with more details. So Garrett, what more can you tell us about that letter?
Yeah, Carolyn, Kyle Payne wrote this letter because he says emergency rooms closures, in Baie-Verte are getting longer and longer to the point where he says they no longer feel temporary. So he wrote this letter after a closure was confirmed last week. He wants health officials to take action and reassure residents that a long-term ER closure isn't in the works. This letter that he penned last week also speaks about an incident that happened earlier this month in the community. He says the fire department was called the morning of August 2nd to help local paramedics administer CPR. They were called because there was no doctor at the hospital that day. They needed help to continue that CPR while en route to the next available emergency room. The patient in that case died, and Payne says you could arguably blame the ER diversion.
Well, obviously it's dire. People are losing their lives. And I mean, it's just not good enough. They have to do more. There's not really much more I can do to show them how dire it is, just to tell them exactly the truth. It's super scary. I mean, ER to us last week would have been Grand Falls, which is about 180 kilometers away. I mean, when minutes and seconds count, 180 kilometers is just not good enough.
That long drive, the 180 kilometers, is also worrying residents of Baie-Verte. Jennifer Cram is a mother. She has a 3-year-old son with severe allergies. She says news of hospital diversions that would have her drive all the way to Grand Falls, Windsor in an emergency give her nightmares. So much so, she said she's considering leaving her town.
We have a shortage not only of doctors, but also ambulances in our vicinity where we rely on, services from Lassie, which is 45 minutes away, and sometimes Springdale when our ambulance isn't here. And I seriously cannot bear the thought of knowing that in a situation such as anaphylactic shock that I would have to drive my child 174 kilometers to the nearest open emergency.
Well, Garrett, do we know if health authorities have seen the letter or responded to Payne's concerns?
Health Minister Tom Osborne said today that he has seen this letter. He commended Payne for speaking out about issues in the community. And when it comes to these closures, Osborne says he and the regional health authority, in this case Central Health, are working to recruit new doctors. Osborne blames a worldwide physician shortage, saying that that's the reason it's become so hard to get doctors on staff and keep these rural emergency rooms open. He says the province of Newfoundland and Labrador simply has to get better at recruitment and retention. But he says new initiatives announced by the provincial government in recent weeks should start to help.
It is a concern. I know it's a concern for residents in the area. It's a concern for me as well. We are on it. We are working at finding the healthcare professionals to fill those roles. We hear you and we understand you.
Nova Scotia just recruited 160 odd physicians there this past year, record number. I mean, why are we not? And then there was a meeting just last week of the Maritime Premiers and Doug Ford, and we weren't at the table.
You also heard there from the PC health critic who says the province is behind on recruiting. Paul Dinn says other provinces in the country are making better pitches to foreign trained doctors, like Ukrainian doctors coming to Canada this summer. So he says this province needs to do much more. Carolyn?
Thanks so much, Garrett. Well, an update now on Central Health's review of thousands of breast cancer screening images. The health authority says it found another possible discrepancy in a patient's mammography image. That brings the total number of possible discrepancies to 4. Central Health is reviewing the mammograms of more than 3,000 patients. The images were gathered at healthcare facilities in Grand Falls, Windsor, and Gander. The province's other health authorities are now reviewing mammography as well. Eastern Health is expected to say more about its findings later this week.
Taking a look at what's going on out there across the province, we've got some fairly quiet weather across the island, just a few showers in the mix along southern areas of the island, but this front here is bringing some showers, which is heavy at times up across the big land. Now, taking a look outside, a pretty beautiful day here in St. John's for the most part. Some high cloud in the mix now, about 20 degrees, feeling more like 24, and those winds are a bit brisk as well out of the west, around 33 kilometers per hour. And if we take a look at the top wind gusts so far, about 56 kilometers per hour in St. John's, and similar wind gusts pretty much across the province. But as we head through the next couple of days, we are going to see those winds ramp up a bit in speed. Not tomorrow, but certainly as we start to head into Wednesday with some pretty strong wind gusts up across Labrador, and then same thing across the island into Thursday. This is also when we're going to see the return of some pretty sticky weather. I'll get into those details when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. A former inmate at Her Majesty's Penitentiary is angry he can't join a class action lawsuit targeting the use of solitary confinement. Al Hickey lives in British Columbia, but in the late 1990s served time in St. John's. Part of that time was spent in solitary confinement. As Here and Now's Ariana Kelland explains, because of that provincial legislation, Hickey will miss out on any compensation.
43-year-old Al Hickey lives on his boat floating off the coast of BC. With just his dog in tow, it's a life of isolation, and it's how he likes it.
I found beauty in my solitude, don't get me wrong. A lot of it. I know how beautiful nature is, but I've missed out on the beauty of humanity.
He says one of the reasons for that can be traced back to his time in a jail cell on the other side of the country. Hickey is from Newfoundland and Labrador. In 1998, he served time at Her Majesty's Penitentiary for petty crimes.
They put me in the hole for 2.5 weeks with another guy and didn't let us out once. Not once. In 2.5 weeks. And the hole, basically there's enough room when you walk in there. There's directly in front of you, there's a raised concrete slab that's got enough room for a mattress. And then in front of that, there's enough room for another mattress. And then there's a toilet, and that's it. There's no room to walk. There's no room to move.
The use of solitary confinement is the subject of a class action lawsuit targeting the Newfoundland and Labrador government. But Hickey isn't part of that. Here's why. Most provinces in Canada have an opt-out class action system, meaning you're automatically included in a class action lawsuit whether you know about it or not. But that's not the case here in Newfoundland and Labrador or in New Brunswick. A non-resident has to hear about a lawsuit, then indicate their intent to sign on within a time frame set out by the courts. Hickey had 90 days.
In the case of the gentleman in Newfoundland who didn't know about the action and didn't opt in time, it means that he can't participate in the settlement. And if he wishes to seek compensation for his damages resulting from solitary confinement, he's going to have to start his own individual litigation.
In a statement, the province says it has no plans on amending that legislation to bring it in line with the rest of Canada. So that leaves people like Hickey, who found out too late about the lawsuit, to go it alone. Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the RNC is investigating a violent altercation at a Labrador City grocery store. A 40-year-old man has been arrested and faces various assault charges, including possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose. Police responded to a disturbance yesterday morning at the IGA on Humber Avenue. 2 men believed to have been involved in the incident were taken to hospital for assessment. Police say both sustained non-life-threatening injuries. Well, a human rights hearing involving a complaint of discrimination against the English school district began today. Parents Todd and Kimberly Churchill say the education system failed their 11-year-old son Carter, who is deaf and has cerebral palsy. They want more access to American Sign Language interpretation in the classroom. The lawyer for the Churchill family says this case could set a precedent that shapes education for deaf children going forward.
Because of the existence of the Newfoundland School for the Deaf for so many years, there hasn't really been, I suppose, a need to explore in the past what accommodations are needed for deaf students. So this really is sort of the first test case in that regard.
Well, Kyle Reese also says this is the biggest human rights case in terms of scale and scope this province has ever seen. He'll tell us what they hope to achieve later in the show. Well, the province will continue using a vendor it blamed for an outage in the MyGovNL system earlier this year, at least for now. Online services like driver's licenses and MCP renewals were knocked offline in early May. At the time, Digital Government Minister Sarah Studley called the situation unacceptable and said the province was second-guessing its choice. Now, Studley says the province is sticking with that contractor, but is looking at alternatives should the need arise.
Cautiously optimistic and hopeful that we won't have any issues. I certainly couldn't guarantee that, but I'm confident in saying if we had another big issue between now and the end of this year, we would certainly be moving. We would be looking at what our plan B is and seriously moving down that road.
Well, the province says it has secured tens of thousands of dollars in compensation from the company providing the service for what happened back in May. Well, in other news, an 11-year-old in Labrador City is getting crafty to raise money for charities close to home, as well as those a world away. As Here and Now's Daryl Din reports, the preteen is approaching one impressive year of giving back.
The idea came to Ella Loader last year. She wanted to help others in her community and beyond. That's where she got the idea for Care Pairs. From a simple piece of clay, she crafts handmade earrings, each style changing with the seasons and with the charity Loader chooses to support.
Usually goes around with the theme, like for back to school earrings, we usually donate to Plan International, which helps education for boys and girls, and in November for Remembrance Day we donated to the Legion. I made some poppy earrings. For Christmas I donated to Toys for Joys, and my friend, her house burned down, so we raised a lot of money for her. Well, we did these a few days ago, and they only take less than an hour to bake, so we usually have them ready in a few days. Mom put up a Facebook page, and people just comment if they want them or not, and they come pick them up. Last September, we donated to Maine Cares for Orange Shirt Day, and I think that I'm going to do that again this year. Mom usually helps me, and sometimes I have my friends over just to do it with me for fun.
And the amount Ella has raised so far?
I think it was around 6,580.
Oh, that's great. So how many charities did that help?
I have no idea. A lot.
Probably a dozen or so. I was very proud that she had come up with the idea, but she's always been a very generous kid anyway and thinks about others all the time, and she's very creative as well. And actually when she was in grade 4, her teacher did some art stuff with clay and she really enjoyed it, so we got her some. So when she came up with that idea, I was 100% in with her. That was great.
I thought that it would be nice to do it for people who would need the money more than me.
Loader's mom says her daughter is inspiring others in the community to do the same, get creative and give back. Daryl Din, CBC News in Labrador City.
Very first Renaissance Festival in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. Yes, it is.
We'll talk about turning back the clock. We take you to this weekend's Renaissance Fair in Paradise. That's ahead after Ashley's weather.
And speaking of nice weather this weekend, we're seeing a return of that humidity even more so through midweek. I'll get into the full forecast coming up.
Well, the sunshine just keeps coming. More sunshine today, some lovely temperatures, just great weather.
It was, yeah. It was kind of nice to see that break in the humidity yesterday. Cooled things off. I know a few thunderstorms sparked across parts of the province, but overall, a beautiful day today. A return of some of that heat, especially in some areas for sure. Let's take a look at your daytime high. Say 22 degrees in St. John's, but with that sunshine, definitely felt warmer than that. 26 in Terra Nova. Same thing for Badger. That was a hot spot. And unfortunately, some colder air filtering further south. Nain, Makovic, Cartwright, barely around 7 to 9 degrees today, and much cooler today in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, only 12 degrees this afternoon for you as your daytime high. All of that heat in the west as well as the island. So taking a look at where that humidity is sitting right now, not really a whole lot, but it's still feeling a little bit warmer. It's feeling more like 27 in Deer Lake right now, 28 in Badger, and then those temperatures still in the 20s here in St. John's, but you're feeling more like 24. And as we head through the next couple of days, muggy meter on the way up. Certainly as we head into Wednesday, or Thursday rather, that's when it should feel the most humid. We're going to start to see those dew points into the 20s again, which means really with that humidity really you're definitely going to feel that humidity rather. And that will stick around right through Friday, and then we'll see a little bit of a dip as we head into Saturday. And we're looking at a similar situation through central, however, as well as western Newfoundland, but you'll see that dip a little bit sooner into Friday and then Saturday, but still going to feel fairly humid with some mild temperatures as well. Taking a look at this current satellite and radar, we do have a few showers along the south coast, Burin Peninsula. And that will should taper off as we head through the next couple of hours. You may see some drizzle lingering, but overall, all of the action will be up across Labrador, where we are seeing those showers, which will be heavy at times, and that will continue through a good chunk of the night tonight. Most of the island should stay relatively dry, with either partly or mostly cloudy skies through the overnight, and then all of the rain should stay towards the northern portion of Labrador, maybe making the northern peninsula as we get into the early morning hours on Tuesday. Temperatures tonight are going to stay mild again after a few cool nights this weekend. Temperatures should sit somewhere between 16 and 19 degrees with the winds out of the southwest around 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. But the further north you go along the coast, that's where those temperatures are going to be the coolest. So single digits, only 6 or 8 degrees. So really not moving too much from where you're sitting now. And then the rest of Labrador will be in the teens tonight, between 12 and 15 degrees through your overnight. Now, as we head through tomorrow, generally looking at a mix of sun and cloud. We may see a few showers develop in the afternoon. At least this model is showing that through Tuesday afternoon and into central areas of the island through the evening hours, but up across Labrador, generally looking at the shower activity continuing. But I do think we'll see a bit more sunshine than this model is showing, particularly into the afternoon hours, but then some shower activity moving in late day again for the northern peninsula. Now, temperatures tomorrow should sit in the 20s. It'll probably feel a bit more humid than this as well, between 30 to 32, I'd say, with the humidex into the afternoon. Those winds again out of the southwest between 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Warmer still as you head towards Clarenville and Bonavista, a couple of degrees warmer than that, and then even more so as you head towards central. Along the south coast, though, those temperatures will stay in and around 21, which is still around seasonal for this time of year, and then towards the west coast as well. The winds out of the southwest for you between 20 and 40 kilometers per hour. Otherwise, temperatures between 21 and 27, and then towards the northern peninsula, this is where the best chance of seeing some showers will be towards the evening hours, but about 23 degrees through the day for St. Anthony. Now, as far as Labrador goes, this is where some of that cooler air will be, with those winds out of the east around 20 kilometers per hour. Those easterlies are why you're seeing these cooler temperatures, so only 13 to 15 degrees. And then again, staying pretty similar towards Makovic, Nain, and then for central Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures around 16 degrees. Still hanging on to that warmth, though, for Lab City with your winds out of the south. That's why you're seeing that warmer air. And temperatures are really going to rebound, though, as we head into Wednesday. That jet stream's going to head further north, allowing that warmer air to move in, and that will bring in that humidity as well. So we'll get into that long-range forecast when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, some folks in Paradise took a step back in time this weekend, way back. A Renaissance festival featured everything from traditional crafts to butter churning and archery. Organizers say whether you dressed up or not, everyone could take part in the old-timey fun.
This is the very first Renaissance festival in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. Yes, it is. And we wanted to bring one here because there's never been one here before. And we figured, okay, especially after everybody coming out of COVID, we want to get something outside, get everybody outside, dressed up and enjoying themselves. I think it's time that Newfoundland and Labrador had a Renaissance festival. And we were talking about it one night. We said, well, we've got comic book conventions, sci-fi conventions, anime conventions. It's time for a Renaissance festival. So we got together, me and some friends, and decided to put it off. You can come in a costume, you can come in everyday clothes. We just want people to come in and enjoy themselves. We got a great response from it, actually, because since we put up a post looking for vendors, we had people sign up right away because they knew it was a new event coming to the province and they wanted to be part of it. And we have two different types of vendors here. We have vendors in our artisan grand market up here in the big tent. We also have vendors in their own realm tents. We've got some psychics, we've got Terra Nova School of Swords, we've got engine books, jack axes, we got leather working, soap making, we've got another person here that does butter churning, so there's a little bit of everything. We are hoping to make it a permanent staple in the province every year because right now we've got like conventions like Sci-Fi on the Rock, we've got Avalon Expo, we got Atlanticon at Corner Brook, Newfoundland HorrorCon, and we want to add, which is all ran by all different people, of course, and organizations. And so what we're looking at doing now is keeping this now regularly every year at the end of August. It's a very, very broad community here in Newfoundland and Labrador. A lot of people got a lot of different interests. Like I said, there's like people that are into sci-fi, into comics, into anime, Renaissance. There are people in everything. And the events that we have now here in the island, between all the different organizers, we're hoping that there's something there for everybody.
Did the English school district discriminate against 11-year-old Carter Churchill? That's the question that's being examined at a Human Rights Commission in St. John's this week. We'll speak with the lawyer for the Churchill family coming up. A woman on the Northern Peninsula wants to bring dignity back to the deceased by repairing hundreds of damaged graves in the Port au Choix area. As freelance reporter Leila Baudouin explains, it all started with a visit to a beloved family member's grave belonging to her grandmother.
Rubbing mud on it so we can pick the lettering out on the headstone. Plowman, Charles, and Margaret. Just look at this one back here. Needs to be fixed.
Meet Jackie Plowman. She recently moved home from Ontario and was visiting her grandmother's grave when she discovered a series of badly beaten and broken grave sites at the Interfaith Cemetery.
It looked so bad after this winter, like it was a brutal winter.
Trim down the sides, try to make it look decent.
With the snow that we had and toppled everything over, and it looked so bad. Some of them tipped over and tipping over and stuff like that. It really looked bad.
After a few phone calls, she learned fixing the dozens of broken headstones, unmarked and grown over graves was the family's responsibility. A tough situation for loved ones, many who were no longer living in the area or who did not have the means to restore their family's resting place.
I see the probably lying there maybe.
But Plowman wasn't backing down. Since spring, she's been repairing those graves alongside her husband Rodney Warren and volunteers like Russell Hines, restoring the graveyard one headstone at a time.
A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Just thinking about some of the headstones, the war memorial headstones that are here that are in such hard shape, they've been here for probably 50 years, and the way they've been tipped and buried and broke off, and you know, they deserve better than that.
They've repaired over 400 graves, fixing broken headstones, repairing crosses, identifying unmarked or indistinguishable resting places.
Born 1912 and died 1942. Been there a while.
Giving dignity back to the deceased, a sense of peace for their loved ones.
I think it's wonderful. It needed to be done.
Elizabeth Gould's nephew Trevor died at just 7 days old from a heart condition. Baby Trevor's grave is among those Plowman and her team fixed up.
The ground is sinking there. Where the stones are so heavy, they started sinking into the earth, and they built them back up and reinforced them. The feeling you get when you know that somebody is actually working on at the graveyard, and your loved ones and your friends' loved ones and your family's loved ones are all being taken care of in that way long after they're gone.
You learn something new every day, and learn like who some of the people are that are buried here, who their families are. And
like this lonely grave site. When Plowman discovered it, the graves were covered in debris, unmarked and outside the cemetery's border. Upon identifying and repairing the broken down site, she connected with Corporal Guy Gould's daughter, now living in Cypress Hills, Alberta, to learn the grave was that of a father and son who died in a drowning tragedy in the 70s. Today, it looks like this, and Gould's daughter sent Plowman $1,500 to go towards a new fence and other repairs. She's received over $8,000 from locals and families living abroad, which goes towards things like gravel, sod, shovels, paint, and wood.
My God, great support. We had widows contacting us, and they never had nobody to fix their husband's headstones, and they were so grateful, crying. And
for Plowman, it's more than fixing what's been broken, but coming here and paying respect after all those years living away from her Newfoundland home, to her friends and family, gone but never forgotten.
My friend was up in Alberta. I guess she was depressed. And now her ashes is here. It kills me. She phoned me one time after Mom had died, and she told me she put flowers on Mom's grave. I just wanted to get their fathers done for her. People that have drowned. My cousin Brian and his friend Benny. Two of them drowned together.
She's channeled that sadness into a restoration project that's caught the attention of the Canadian military, who plan to reimburse her for those military graves they restored. With no signs of slowing down, Plowman has made it her mission to fix each and every damaged grave in the area.
God had a plan for me to be here and do it. That's what I felt like to me. Looks amazing.
Layla Baudouin, CBC News, Port au Choix.
Well, on the St. John's Morning Show tomorrow, you'll hear from a doctor who says he's resigning from his post at Eastern Health, frustrated that he can't get the support or the space needed to practice medicine. And on Labrador Morning, Innu elders from Labrador and Quebec have been reconnecting this week and forming new friendships. They'll drop by the tent of Elder Rose Montague of Sheshatshiu tomorrow on the show. Well, today is the first day of a hearing into a human rights complaint against the English school district. The Churchill family say the school system discriminated against their 11-year-old son, Carter, who is deaf and has cerebral palsy. They say that he wasn't given enough access to resources like American Sign Language in class. Joining me now is the lawyer representing the Churchill family, Kyle Reese. So this has been years in the making, this hearing. Can you talk about the size and scope of this?
Yeah, this is by far the largest in scope and most involved human rights hearing that's ever taken place in this province. This complaint is 5 years old. I've been the lawyer for the Churchills for the last 4 years. Shortly after the complaint was filed, they hired me. And we're here for 2 weeks. We're putting under cross-examination not just a number of folks who've been involved in Carter's education, but sort of the top brass of the English school district, who are being called to account and explain why for years, 2016, 2017, 2018, it was known by the school district that it was failing deaf children, and why the school district failed to take, in our view, what the appropriate steps were.
And when you say like the top brass, who are we talking about here?
We're talking about the CEO of the school district. We're talking about the Director of Programs and Services. We're talking about various government officials and folks within the Department of Education, deputy ministers. So these are all individuals who, had some hand in ignoring the needs of deaf children in this province.
How many witnesses will be testifying?
I believe it's 22 witnesses.
Oh, wow, okay. And what does the Churchill family want to accomplish with this complaint?
The Churchill family has a couple of goals here that I'm assisting them in arguing for. The first is to ensure that their son Carter, on a go-forward basis, is provided with those services he needs, so instruction in ASL interpretation, those sorts of things. But it's also to ensure that the discrimination is recognized, such that other students who experience this kind of discrimination in the future, know that they have a remedy available to them, know what kinds of services they should expect. And in my view, the Churchills have gone a long way over the last few years, in establishing the kinds of educational programs that deaf children in this province should come to expect. And this human rights hearing is merely the last step in that process to make sure those rights are guaranteed, not just for Carter, but for all deaf kids.
Yeah, can you talk about that a bit more? How precedent-setting is this hearing?
I anticipate it's quite precedent-setting. There are several cases across the country, and indeed at the Supreme Court of Canada, that deal with sign language in the education context. So across the country, this actually isn't anything new. There's a lot of precedent there. But for this province, there have been very few, only a couple, of cases that have involved access to ASL and folks who require ASL interpretation. So it should be precedent-setting only in terms of that. Because the existence of the Newfoundland School for the Deaf for so many years, there hasn't really been, I suppose, a need to explore in the past what accommodations are needed for deaf students. So this really is sort of the first test case in that regard.
Mm-hmm. And so if the Human Rights Commission does come back and say, yes, the English school district discriminated against Carter Churchill, what would happen then?
A few things would happen. I mean, just the finding that the programming that Carter received was discriminatory means a lot, because it sends a very clear signal that the programming needs to be changed and made better. So that's the first thing that happens. The second thing that happens, and we really look forward to this, is the school district is not just encouraged but ordered to ensure that there are teaching professionals with adequate experience and qualifications to teach ASL available in all schools for all children who need them. So hopefully the result of this hearing means that ASL education in Newfoundland and Labrador gets better, that people who have an interest in developing skills in ASL can get it and know that there will be a market here for it. So the real goal here is to make our education system better, and that's what the Churchills are looking to accomplish.
Well, Kyle Reese will be following along to see what happens with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Deep cracks have emerged in relations between Nova Scotia police forces and the RCMP. The long-standing turf war, as some have called it, appears to have escalated since the Portapique tragedy. And as Blair Rhodes reports, leaders are using the public inquiry as a battleground.
Morning of April 19th, as we learned about the murders being committed by a gunman on the loose, municipal police forces from across the province were ready to help the RCMP. Many chiefs offered resources, but the Mounties brought in RCMP teams from New Brunswick instead. Municipal chiefs complained the Mounties weren't keeping them informed. Truro's police chief says he was surprised to learn the gunman had traveled through his town in the midst of the rampage.
We didn't find out until it was on the news, probably, and I'd be guessing now, a week, 5 days after the event. No one reached out and told us that happened.
Then came the issue of tracking. Former Assistant Commissioner Lee Bergerman says it was necessary to start cataloging when municipal forces request RCMP services, such as canine and dive teams. But she told the inquiry police chiefs weren't happy.
They were concerned that they were going to start getting billed for services, but really, they've never been billed, to my knowledge.
Earlier this year, relations hit a breaking point when the Provincial Association for Police Chiefs demoted the RCMP to associate status, taking away their ability to vote. Municipal chiefs say they had serious differences of opinion with senior RCMP officers.
There's been a lot of talk about them being kicked out and these kind of things. It really wasn't that way. So I can tell you I was there. It was a very difficult day.
Senior Mounties have a different view.
If you relegate and remove us from key associations, what do you think, or what do you think the expectations in terms of outcomes are going to be for that?
Chief Superintendent Leather says there is a chance things will improve, as he and 3 other senior Mounties are no longer part of the Nova Scotia command structure. A new team is set to come in with a clean slate. But this festering dispute happens to be boiling over at the same time Colchester and Cumberland counties are also reviewing which police force is best going forward. Blair Rhodes, CBC News, Halifax.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and several cabinet ministers attended a ceremonial flag raising in Ottawa today.
Flag is an expression of remembrance. It is meant to honor all survivors and all the lives through the generations that have been, are being, and will continue to be impacted by the residential school system.
The orange and white survivors flag features 9 distinct elements, each with a special meaning. It was designed in consultation with survivors from across Canada. The flag will fly near the Visitor Welcome Centre on Parliament Hill until 2024. A decision will then be made on finding the flag a permanent home. Well, 50 years after the last Apollo lunar mission, NASA's return to the moon has been delayed by a few more days. Today's scheduled launch of Artemis 1 has been put off until at least Friday.
This is Artemis Launch Control with an update. Launch Director Charlie Blackwell-Thompson has called a scrub.
A problem with the cooling one of the 4 massive rocket engines kept the spacecraft on the ground. This test flight is supposed to be the first big step towards returning humans to the moon as early as 2025. Today's scrub was not completely unexpected, though. Similar problems were encountered during testing weeks ago. The next opportunity to launch comes on Friday, and if that doesn't work out, NASA could try again next Monday. Well, now to an out-of-this-world athlete. The U.S. Open Tennis Championship is underway in New York, and one of the greatest players ever takes to the court this evening. It could be the final singles match of her career for Serena Williams. The 40-year-old Williams has won 23 Grand Slam singles titles. She's taken the U.S. Open 6 times. Her opening round is against Danka Kovacic of Montenegro. Williams recently announced she's ready to step away from pro tennis, and the U.S. Open is expected to be her final tournament. Along with her singles play, Serena is set to appear with her sister Venus in a doubles match later in the week. A young PEI athlete is on a roll. Amy Spence is a lawn bowler and a Canadian champion in 2 sports. Now she's going to head overseas to compete in Ireland. CBC cameras swung by her home club to learn more about the sport.
It's just like any other sport, really. You have, like, you know when you're gonna do good, so you throw it, and you can tell if it's close right away.
Oh, what a bag of shot! We're presently at the Sherwood Lawn Bowling Club, and this is her home greens.
I would describe it as bowling and curling on grass, basically. You're aiming for a small target like curling, but you're throwing it in a bowling style. You throw your 4 bowls, they're not balls. You throw 4 bowls, both of you do. It's the same idea. You first to score 21, so closest to the jack gets the points. The bowls aren't round, so one side has like more weight to it. So you throw it out wide like curling, and it comes in. It's just a great atmosphere. Everyone's friendly. It's competitive, but it's never like serious. And going across Canada, I've made so many friends. So getting to go just hang out with people I know, play against people I know is great.
I am her #1 supporter. Yeah, I follow her everywhere for every sport she ever plays. So we went to Mississauga a couple weekends ago, and she competed in the U25 Canadian Lawn Bowling Championships and won the gold.
There's under 25 and there's under 18, but I played in the under 25. I went and I didn't think I was gonna win. When I won, I actually did cry because I was so excited.
She, on her last bowl, she knew she was drawing in for the win, and she started crying before she even got down to the other end to make sure she did win.
I went undefeated, and I won 21-8 in the final. So I get to go to Ireland in December. I have never traveled outside of Canada before.
We've pretty well been to every province across Canada for her alley bowling or her lawn bowling. She's an actual national 5-pin bowler champion. She won in 2012 in Newfoundland, and she won in 2016 in Calgary. It's pretty exciting to think that she's a Canadian champion in 2 sports, just not 1. And representing PEI, which hasn't happened very often either. So that's pretty exciting for us and for the island.
I never thought I would be going internationally for a sport. I just hope I get selected for like Team Canada. They do selection camps, and you can get to go all over the world with this. So just to be able to go to another international event would be great.
Looks like a bit of fun, actually, especially on a nice sunny day like we've been having lately.
It's been
Seems
perfect
almost
weather.
every day.
It has been. Well, lately, yes. I mean, we did see quite a bit of rain for the beginning of August, and now we're almost at the end of it.
Yes, can you believe it? It's almost September.
I know.
But we are on a roll with the good weather.
Yeah, we are. But we do have some rain in the forecast for some areas, and quite a bit, in fact, for others. So let's take a look at what's going on. As we head into Wednesday morning, there is more shower activity expected up across the Big Land and Northern Peninsula. Same thing along the South Coast, and that's because we return to that onshore flow, a very moist air mass moving in, so that means that we'll likely see some drizzle and fog along the South Coast, but it's also going to bring in some humidity as well. But most of the action as far as rain goes should be up across the Big Land, and that will actually increase as we head even into the overnight and into Thursday as well. So taking a look at the temperatures, most areas, well, finally we'll see a rebound back up to 25 degrees in Cartwright. Same thing for Happy Valley Goose Bay, and this will be along with some humidity as well. So it'll feel more like the low 20s, high 20s, low 30s as far as Humidex goes. Hanging on to the teens up across Nain around 13 degrees. And then Lab City around 22, but you will sit under those cloudy skies as well as some rain. Temperatures across the island, though, warming beautifully, 25 to 27 degrees. Again, though, areas in the onshore flow will be a bit cooler along the south coast. So teens, low 20s, the story for you. And then we'll watch that rain work its way across the big land. Lots of moisture associated with this as well. So areas along the south coast could see some heavy rain through the day on Thursday, really in the morning, but then continuing through a good chunk of the afternoon as all of that moisture just funnels further towards the province into the afternoon. This is also when we're going to see the most humid weather into the afternoon. Dew points into the 20s, low 20s, so we'll feel that humidity in the mid 30s, potentially even the high 30s as well. But again, lots of rain on the way. Temperatures should sit in the 20s for the most part. The eastern half of the island should actually stay dry through the day. Somewhere between 23 and 26 degrees will be the afternoon high. Areas in onshore flow along the coast of the Avalon will stay a bit cooler than that, and then back down into the teens, but up for Nain. So you're on a roller coaster ride, about 19 degrees through your Thursday. Taking a look at the long range forecast, rain should arrive for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland through Friday, and then continue through the night, and then eventually clearing through the day on Saturday, at least as it looks like now, with temperatures into the 20s, around 22 or 23 degrees. And look at those overnight lows again, between 17 to 19 degrees, dipping a little bit as we get into Saturday, but overall a pretty nice stretch of weather, temperature-wise anyway, with that humidity sticking around as well. Now, central Newfoundland, you'll see your showers on Thursday into Friday with some rain between 25 and 26 degrees, and then Saturday eventually you'll clear as well. Around 24 will be your daytime high. Temperatures are going to dip, though, in the overnight as we get towards the weekend. Then for western Newfoundland, you're looking at your temperatures into the 20s as well. Saturday looking beautiful at this point with some sunshine. You'll finally say goodbye to that rain, and your temperature hovering around 21 degrees. Now for eastern Labrador, your temperatures also are going to stay in the 20s Friday. Looking at sunshine by Saturday, we should see a few showers, but then for western Labrador, your temperatures are going to dip a bit into the teens both Thursday and Friday, and then returning to the 20s again on Saturday. So certainly a bit of a roller coaster, but your overnight lows look like they'll stay in the single digits. Now, had to share this great shot. I love this one.
Oh,
nice.
Nice.
Yes, this is Deer Lake, looking towards Marble Mountain there. So thank you so much to Derek for that. Speaking of Marble Mountain, the radar should finally be up soon, which is good.
Exciting for you.
couple more weeks. Definitely been missing that. I'm sure all of you on the West Coast as well. If you want to share any of your photos, Facebook, Twitter, or email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
We only have a few seconds left, but how much of a difference will that make, having that?
Just being able to see the rain, that's really, near-term forecasting. It's really important. We definitely missed it all summer long.
All right, good stuff. Well, that's it for us on this Monday. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
Good night.